Hello and welcome back to Plant Revelations. It's been a while, but we're back with a new video, and today we're going to look at how to plant up a small garden step by step. And in fact, this garden is my garden. My garden's actually not a bad size, but most of it is actually used for plants that we use in designs and projects and stuff. It's a holding area, if you like. So we've never actually had a back garden. The other garden that you've seen in my video is actually the front garden. But after some time, and now I've got a family and a little lad, Fred, we now need a space, somewhere to play and for us to sit. Bit of lawn for Fred to play, and I'm gonna include a couple of borders. So this is a really small space, and as you know, with new builds these days, the gardens are getting smaller and smaller, almost minute. So let me show you around the borders we're going to plant up first, and I'll show you how small it actually is. So this is the big border. When I say big, not that big, but it's 3.5 meters, or what would that be in feet? Sort of 9 or 10 foot wide or long, if you want to say, and the depth is around about 6 or 7 foot. So somewhere between 1.8 and 2 meters, and that is 1.5 meters would be the smallest depth of border or width, whatever you want to call it. I would go for, because you need to have that space to have short plants, larger shrubs and larger perennials, and hopefully some trees. And that's going to give you depth. It's going to allow you to break up the fence, allow to break up some of the outline of the houses, and actually it will make your garden feel a lot bigger than what it actually is, even though you're taking away quite a bit of lawn. So remember, narrow borders are for narrow-minded people, so go big or go home. So this other border here is about 1 meter by approximately sort of maybe like 70 to 80 centimeters wide. It's not big at all. But it's just there to break up the lawn, because I don't just want a big rectangle of grass. I do want to create interest. So I put this in. So it's going to be, we'll come up with something interesting for this so that it doesn't look so small. I won't be putting a shrub in or anything like that, but I am going to go for something interesting and impressive. And simple. But where you start with a design, and with any garden, design or no design, if you're doing it on the cuff like me, is we start out with the biggest, most architectural plants first. So let's have a look at some of the trees that I'm going to be putting in, and we'll place those first before we do anything else. So this is the tree I've chosen to go in the small border. This is Betula utilis jackmontiana, or otherwise known as the Himalayan birch. Now I've gone for this because if we put this in and then we're going to underplant this with some perennials, it's going to give us height, but it's not going to make it too dark, so it's not going to shade the lawn out and kill it. It has a nice light canopy. When we sit on the lawn and look in that direction, just those houses there, the windows will be broken up, so it will give us some privacy, or at least the illusion of privacy. Like I say, in an ideal world, I'd have another one over there to break up those houses, but this is all we've got at the moment. Another reason I chose this tree is because it's on the nursery. It's quite big, it's already established. It's the last one that we've got left. All the other, this was the smallest one of the ones that we sold. It's about, I'd say it's about 3 meters. But yeah, so looking forward to getting that in. let's have a look at the other border. So this little tree here is Cornuscusa barchinensis. I could have gone for something immediately larger on the nursery, but I think long term this will be really suitable. It will get about 7 foot, 8 foot in the next 2 or 3 years. It'll have quite a wide spread, which is why it's in the middle of the border. It'll have these white bracts all over it this time of year, followed by lovely red fruits, and the foliage will go a lovely deep dark red in the autumn. It's looking a bit anemic at the moment because I've had it in a pot and I've been a bit reluctant to put on because I knew I was going to plant it up, but it will soon flush a lovely dark green. This next one is called Eucalyptus pulsella. I will put the actual name underneath, and it's a beautiful fine leaved eucalyptus. Now you're probably thinking, Mike, you're mad putting a eucalyptus in the garden. It's gonna grow seriously large, like 100 foot tall, be a menace. It's on your boundary, and you'd be right, but we're not actually treating this as a tree. We are going to be trimming this down to the ground probably every other year, and it's gonna basically be treated very much like a foliage shrub. So it will basically be treated like you'd prune it on a cycle like a buddleia, about April time, late April. We'll prune it quite hard. We might skip a year if it's looking like it needs to recover a bit more, but it's going to get thrashed down to the ground every other year, and it's going to give a lovely sort of I don't know if I'm in shot or not, it's going to get a lovely, beautiful, silvery, purpley foliage backdrop for our planting, and all year round interest. Just next to me here is another small tree. It's called Acacia pravissima. It's actually one of the hardiest acacias that you can grow in the UK. People also refer to them as mimosas. He's got these really unusual triangular leaves, and I'll show a close-up of that. It has these beautiful sort of creamy, this one's called lemon twist. It's got these lovely creamy sort of fluffy mimosa-like flowers in February, March time, so it'll give some interest in the winter. And it'll have this beautiful foliage. Now if it does get too big, we can actually just hack it back, much like the eucalyptus, but I want to let it grow quite large, maybe about the size of this plum tree next to us here, which will be going. So again, it's going to give some structure to the border and a nice backdrop and break up the fence. Just behind here you'll see this one might not be staying. This is from the previous planting. I was given this little Indian bean tree, which of course will grow into a monster, but I will pollard that as well. So every 2 to 3 years I'll chop it down to the ground, much like you do with a foxglove tree, and I've actually done a video on that as well. And the growth of these can be spectacular. They'll grow about 6 or 7 foot in a year. Again, it will give us beautiful leaves. If you left the tree to grow, it have lovely flowers. So that's might not stay. I might replace that with a shrub, we'll see. But at the moment it's staying. Those are the trees which are going in, and it might seem like a lot of trees in a small space, but like I said, a lot of them are going to be heavily managed. They're going to be pruned back hard. You could, for example, substitute this behind me for, let's say, an Acer. You could maybe substitute the eucalyptus for something like a buddleia, and you'll still give a similar effect with the foliage. Or you could change the eucalyptus for a ceanothus as well. So there's lots of options. So I'll get these in, and then the next step is to look at architectural perennials and shrubs, and then finally we'll get down to the bit which most of you are probably interested are the flowers. But it's really important to layer the planting. So I've dug a hole for the tree, and I'll try and zoom in a little bit closer in a minute, but this is actually a square hole, not a round hole. And the reason we do that is to stop root girdling. Otherwise the roots will corkscrew, and in 10 to 20 years time this plant may well strangle itself and fall over. So square hole is important, especially in hard, heavy clay like I've got. Hopefully you can make out that. It looks rather dark, but you can see it's a square hole. The next thing is, we don't want to plant it too deep. So the buttress roots, or where you can see the tops, you can just see the tops of the roots when you plant it. Now don't be tempted to plant it deep so it down to the straight stem, because that's when rot can occur, and that's one of the biggest causes of tree death. The other one is ring barking, normally caused by lawn mowers, strimmers, and that is why we've got a decent sized bed around this tree. Not only that, grass is the biggest competitor of trees. So we've covered all aspects here. We've got a nice big bit of clear space, although we will be planted in it. But it's still not going to give the competition that grass will have. We've done a lovely square hole. We're not going to backfill that hole with compost. We're going to backfill it with soil. We don't want to make the hole nice. We want the plant to venture out that hole so it doesn't get root girdling. I'm going to rip up the root ball with my hands. And of course, another important thing is that, just like us, we all have a good side and a bad side, and trees are no different. So obviously, if I was going to plant it, this isn't a bad side, but of course that is rather flat, so it doesn't give a nice shape. Now we'll be viewing this from the house, so we probably want either that side facing the house, probably that side as all the leaves are facing that way, or that side, not that, because it will not look great. So I'm going to angle it sort of with its best face just pointing down towards the house there, so when we look through the window and when we're sitting on the lawn, and it will even out eventually because the sun is actually behind the camera, so the whole head of the tree will eventually even out with a bit of formative pruning. And now all we need to do is, I would probably half backfill and fill the hole with water. And of course I need to get a stake in because it's in the middle of the garden, it's really exposed. The top is essentially acting like a sail, and the wind comes down this hill. So I'm going to put the stake behind the tree, which will be nice because we won't be able to see it from the house as well. So yeah, the wind often comes down the hill that way. So yeah, I'll crack on with that now. As you can see now, I've placed out the perennials and the small shrubs that are going to go in the gaps. And I'm just going to grab the camera and run through them and how I came to those decisions. You might notice there's a lot of plants, but don't worry about that. I explain all about how we can make it more affordable for you later. So as you know, the colour scheme is blue, orange, red, pink and purple. And there's apricots as well, peaches, obviously, subtle tones of those different things. So normally in a big garden I would do big drifts, but this small, so I'm only using one or two of some things that get quite big. So this is the draining Roseanne, which is a lovely sort of purpley colour. Going into the middle there, we have a lovely dark agapanthus. I forget the name at the moment, but it's a repeat flowering agapanthus. So you can see the blue is repeated down the border. Just here we've got a clump of 3 Hyssop officinalis, which is a lovely underrated herb with really dark deep blue flowers. So we can see the blue is repeated through the border, and then just behind here, you might just make it out, is an Aster Twilight, which will flower sort of August, September time with lovely mauvey blue flowers. So we've got that threaded through, but not next to each other because we don't want blue next to blue, etc. Here we've got a Astrantia It's a red one. It's a seedling off a particularly large giant form, so it doesn't look at it at the moment. It's a bit hungry, but when it gets bigger, it'll have lovely big heads the size of sort of the palm of your hand. Next to that, we've got a Crocosmia, mystery Crocosmia. It's either a pinky orange one or it's a blood red one. So, but yes, so from the burgundy like flowers of the Astrantia, we've got this lovely purple burgundy rose just here, and that's called Midnight Owl, and that's going to have lovely dark burgundy purple foliage. Now, if we can see, but towards the back, I'm doing this on a tripod, we have got Vitis vinifera purpurea, so we're carrying on that sort of claret purple colour. Then if we scan down, we've got that picked up in the purple stems of this Eupatorium atriopurpureum. So that's touches with that. It will have pink flowers, but the stems are quite dark. Here we've got a Persicaria silver dragon. Again, repeating that sort of burgundy reddy colour. At the front, we have some rather ratty looking pen stamens, and they're like a deep sort of purpley red colour. And let's have see if we can get around here. Around here we have Persicaria Vats Domino, which has a lovely sort of reddy pink burgundy bottle brush like flowers. And then again we've got this picked up in the Hydrangea Hot Chocolate leaves. So we've gone through the blue element, although I have forgot to mention that this aster here next to the cornice is an aster violetta, and that'll have lovely dark bluey purple flowers. So we've gone through the blues, the burgundies slash purpley reds. Now I'll have a look at the oranges that we've got, the injection of orange. We've got this beautiful poker here called Mango Popsicle, and that give a lovely sort of pale orange flowers, and it flowers for a while. Next to it we've got Helenium Red Army, and then just here we have got Gladiolus Papilio Ruby, which is a lovely red perennial gladioli with really deep dark red flowers. So those are the red elements, and again they're repeated through, and then finally we've got pink elements, starting with the Hydrangea Hot Chocolate will have a pale pink sort of neon coloured flowers. They're really quite unusual. Just here we've got a Veronicastrum Pink Fascination. Then we've got the Echinaceas, which are more of like a reddy pink, a bright dark pink, and above we'll have the Eupatorium atriopurpureum, which is again, it's like a much darker pink. And then let's see if we can just bring this over here. We have got Anemone. Oh, I might have to have a look at this. Give me 2 seconds. Anemone. Don't know if you can make that out. Bessingham Glow, which is a reddy pink one I've been trying to grow for a while, but I do find it's not as easy to grow as Honorine Jobert or September Charm on heavy soils, but it is a beautiful deep pink. So yeah, that's this border. You're probably thinking it's full of plants, but it's still going to look bare for about a year. And then next year, well, there is a cheeky climbing red rose at the back there. And then next year, it should fill out. By sort of this time next year, I'd imagine there won't be much soil. And I'm going to fill the gaps in with things like spring bulbs, which I'll plant in autumn, and they're going to give that spring colour, because as you probably notice, most of these plants are late summer flowering or mid or early to late summer flowering. There's no spring bulbs, so that's where I'm going to get my colour from. Alliums, tulips and bulbous iris, they're all going to give me the colour in the spring, along with some of the evergreens in here. So there'll be another planting video in autumn when I pop the bulbs in, and I'll show you how I do that, layer it through the planting. Let's have a look at the other smaller border and what I've decided to put in that one. Okay, so this is the little border. There's nothing substantial in here. Everything is small, and that's to sort of accentuate, excuse the rubbish behind, that's to accentuate this nice silver birch. It's too small an area to have a shrub, so we've got a nice mix of perennials which are echoing and harking on what we've already done in the big border. So on the corner here, I've got this lovely heuchera called Southern Comfort. There's two plants there, but I'm going to plant it so it looks like one big clump, because I don't like even numbers. You'll also notice there's another of these anemones, I can't even say it, anemone Bressingham Glow. So again, that's repeating, they're almost diagonal. If you to sort of scan back and look at the whole, well, zoom out and look at the whole garden, they're almost diagonal to each other. So I'm repeating certain elements from this border into the other border. These little purpley things here are something I've dug out of my gravel path around the front. And I would recommend to anyone who wants plants for free is to have a gravel path or a gravel drive, and you'll get all of your desirable plants seeding in there, as well as undesirable ones. But you can easily dig them up and move them around, and it saves you having to sow seed and faff about with things like that. In the centre there, we've got another rose. Now, I'm not actually a fan of roses, but they're a good way of getting like peaches and oranges into a planting, and this one is called Rosa Joie de Veuve. It was actually a rose of the year. It has very little black spot. It's extremely compact, barely needs pruning, and it has pinky, orangey like flowers. So hopefully I can just overlay a picture of that. Next to that, we've got a group of 3 Eryngium Big Blues. Now I'll see if I can get a picture of that for you just now. There we go, this is what it is. It actually goes a lot deeper, darker blue than that, and it has really big heads on quite a small plant, and they will make quite a sizable clump eventually. So these plants are actually planted a little bit too close together, but it means they're going to fill out. It's going to look great this year, next year, year after that. I'm going to have to think about doing some dividing. This rather frothy looking thing is a Geum Totally Tangerine, and again that's going to give that splash of orange. So we'll have the orange of the Geum, the peachy orange of the rose, the sort of orangey coloured leaves of the heuchera, and then in that back corner we have a beautiful poker called Tawny King, which has rather apricotty like flowers. We've also got another poker, which is going to probably go in the big border, called Fiery Fred, named after well, the same name as my son. If I just spin you round to here, you'll see we've got a bit of a winter interest with this hellebore. This is called Warburton's Rosemary, and it's a fantastic hellebore. Lovely pale pink flowers. It's going to have that luxurious evergreen foliage, and it actually holds its head up, unlike other hellebores. So that's something I just had to fit in there. So we will get a few evergreen elements with the leaves of the sea holly. They'll remain, and the leaves of the heuchera and the leaves of the hellebore. So that'll give us a little bit of winter interest. Back there, this plant's already been put in. This is a geranium Patricia, which is an excellent geranium. Almost as good as Roseanne, which I showed you earlier, which will flower from June till November. This one will flower for 3 months solid. Yeah, really good plant. Chop it back and it'll flower again around August, September time. And again, you can see also just there is some more of the Gladiolus Papilio Ruby. Beautiful burgundy red head. So we've got the red, we've got the orange apricots, we've got the dark pink with the anemone, and we've got pale sort of mauve with the Verbena Brampton, but we've got the nice dark purpley leaves. So you can see these elements have been repeated. Now, let's just have one last look at the other border. So all that's left to do now is get these planted, which shouldn't take me too long. And then after that, I need to keep them well watered. One thing I do want to talk about is budget. Now, if you were to buy these things from a garden centre, a chain garden centre, where your plants are going to be the most expensive, let's face it, it's going to cost you around £750 for all this planting. Now, it sounds like a lot of money, but what I will caveat that is that I can't afford that, and the reason I can do this is because I run my own nursery. So please don't feel bad about that. Chances are, if you've got a small garden, you've got a small budget. Like I say, if it wasn't for the fact that I propagate and grow these myself, I wouldn't be able to afford to spend this type of money on a planting. But if you were to buy these plants from a local grower, a nursery, you could probably bring that price down to maybe 2/3 or half of that. So you could potentially do this for like £500. Don't ask me what this is in dollars. I'm sure plants might be either cheaper or more expensive in America. But you could do that a lot cheaper. And then if you're prepared to go on like Facebook Marketplace, or in America Craigslist, you could pick up plants and bargains. Local gardening clubs, you can pick these things up. So long as you're prepared to wait, what I would say is spend your money on the big things like the shrubs and stuff, get those in, your key features, and then have your list of plants and draw out a plan, have your list of plants that you want to put in, and then as and when you see them, or when you've got the money, or if you see a bargain, which you can get bargains in reduced sections when plants have finished flowering, because garden centres don't grow their own stuff. Well, certainly a lot over here don't. So as soon as a plant's gone over, it's not worth anything to them. They can only sell things in flower because they're not going to hold on to it for another year till it flowers next year. So that's a really good opportunity to pick up cheap plants, your friends, and you can grow some stuff from seed as well. So you can build it up over a year or two. So please don't feel disheartened and think that, oh, I could never do that. Within a couple of years, you would be able to plant it up. And in the meantime, you can fill those gaps with things like nasturtiums, which would work in this colour scheme because you can get them in peach, red, orange, cosmos. You could use pink cosmos. to fill the gaps, to give you some height. There's loads of different annuals you can grow from seed. Californian poppies, for example. You could use climbers such as even runner beans have lovely orangey pink flowers. Morning glory, or Ipomea as it's also known. So there's loads of different annuals that you could use to fill the gaps until your plants grow in. Another tip you can do is, rather than where I put 3, like these 3 Helenium Red Army, and behind me I've got 3 Echinaceas or 3 Hyssops, you could go small like I've gone, which will save you money, and they will fill out very quickly. They'll get to the size of a 2 or 3 litre pot. But also you could just put 1 in, wait a year or 2, and divide them up. And that way also you won't have to divide them up as quickly. You won't be having to chuck away plants after a few years. And if you've got a bigger garden, you can reuse those plants elsewhere. So now it's just a case of watering these plants, planting them, watering them, and I'm going to chime back in a month or 2's time and give you an update of how everything's growing, if I've added anything else, which I probably will do, knowing me. I'm probably going to put a canna in here. I haven't got any dahlias, but if I had dahlias, I could put dahlias, might put some orange dahlias in. But I might put a canna in here for a nice injection of bold purple leaves and orange flowers. And yeah, I'll update you. So this is it all planted up. And you can see that once they go in the ground, they're actually, looks like there still looks like there's gaps, but it will fill in. I could put nasturtiums in some of the gaps, but I'm probably going to leave it for now. Bertie, shh. Just to sum up, you want to have as wide a border as possible. Don't be afraid to use some height. Use the dimension which you've got plenty of, and that's height, and that will make your garden feel bigger. Vary your textures and colours of foliage, alternating evergreen, deciduous, to give all year round interest. And like we've got here, silvers, purples, greens, and that's going to give you interest even when there's nothing flowering. Get your spring colour from your bulbs and stick with a relatively small palette, you know, no more than sort of 5 or 6 colours. I've essentially got orangey, peachy, pink, electric pink, purple, red and blue. And what's that, 5 or 6 colours? So stick with that and you'll find it a bit easier when choosing plants as well. If you wanted to know, my soil is quite a heavy red clay. I've not improved it at all, other than chucking down some waste compost, because we've got a nursery. Of course, we get dead plants after a winter, and I've just chuck some of that on, and that will help improve the drainage. If you've got this far, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. And if you pick up some useful little tips that you can use in your garden, what we decide to use, if you know what we're going to do, just keep, collecting little bits and bobs. And like I say, start off with big plants and make your way down. How do you feel? Whatever garden it is, enjoy it, watching it evolve and grow. Anyway, if you do it all at once, you often think there's not much satisfaction left developing over time to get them from the garden. Anyway, take care, catch up for now, and see you